to go through a few things that Chamber has going on, and then we'll turn the program over to Jerry. So I wanted to let you know that we have kind of finalized our banquet, and we're ready to, if you didn't see it in the newsletter, we're ready to announce that we'll be hosted again by Chalmette. We're very excited to be out there again. The date will be April 19th, which is a Friday, and the doors will open at 5:30 with social hour kicking off as soon as you get there, and then till 7, and then dinner will take place. It's $25 a person, or you can purchase a table of 10. If you just purchase individually, obviously you just pay the per person price. But there are tables of 10, and those tables of 10 can be reserved. If you are not with a party of 10, you are just on general seating like you were last year. So the tickets go on sale March 25th at the Chamber of Commerce office, and we do now have the capability of taking your purchase, if you want to purchase a table, via credit card now. We purchased the Square and a tablet to go ahead and make some of those transactions easier for us and for our members. It also is going to be utilized heavily this summer for our summer series. So if you don't want to send a check and use your credit card or debit card, you can now do that with us. So we're pretty excited about that. For the centerpieces, we have 2 individuals on the centerpiece banquet committee, Sharon Scher and Mary Beth Ferguson. They will be contacting you probably within the next week or so to ask you if your business wants to donate. We've always had great success with this last year and past years. Last year was phenomenal. We don't really have a theme, which is kind of our gala, so it's whatever you want to make it, and you can definitely promote your business throughout that centerpiece. Centerpiece prices have to start at $50 or more. So look for those ladies to be following up with you in probably a week or so, and we appreciate your support on that. Like I kind of mentioned just now about Summer Series, I just want to let you know that we are able to now take tickets at the door if you want to pay via credit card or debit card, so I just want to mention that. And we're starting our promotion and marketing materials for Summer Series, and sponsorships will be going out probably by the end of the month. So look for some of that information as well. For new business in the newsletter, you had a ballot for our Chamber Board of Directors. There are their bios as well as a ballot in there. Kind of shows you how you can vote if you belong to a larger company, how many votes your company gets. The deadline for those to be in is April 1st. So if you want to cast your vote, then you need to get it to me by then. The new directors will be introduced at the Chamber banquet on April 19th. Also in the newsletter was the nominations form. It looked like this. This is to nominate individuals or businesses for our Small Business of the Year, Community Service, and Lifetime Achievement Awards. I will be very honest and tell you, we have only one person submit something so far, and it's kind of really sad to see, because there are so many people out there that can and should be nominated. So I want you to really take a look at that and look at that form and see if you know someone that you want to nominate. Don't be shy to nominate someone that maybe have already received an award. They might not have gotten that award, been nominated for that award before. So I really would like to see some entries. I think our deadline is March 15th for that, which is coming up. And the reason it's such a short deadline is because our Chamber board meeting is the following week, and we have to select the recipient. So, and the families have to be contacted. Their speeches have to be written. So we really need a quick turnaround on that. So if you have an opportunity to look at that and want to nominate someone, we would greatly appreciate it. So with that, that's all I have for Chamber business. Does anybody have any questions for me? Okay. Well, I'm going to introduce Jerry Bader. He is with Bader Land Surveying, and he's going to kind of give us an overview of past to present. So, and what he actually does, because I really don't know. So, with that, Jerry Bader.
Thank you. What I'm going to try to do is just give a little bit of history of surveying. You can get into a lot of detail. I've got copies of some surveys here. I'm going to try and make my presentation short so that if anybody wants to come up and take a look. Some of these surveys, these are copies of the survey after the Louisiana Purchase. What I've been able to dig up over the past few years is some surveys by the French and the Spanish government in the late 1700s that actually GLO, the General Land Office, followed after the Louisiana Purchase. So hopefully there's time left and everybody can come up and take a browse around. But did everybody get a handout? There's just some highlights, some bullet points of some of the history from, Canada. The French settled St. Genevieve in the 1670s. A lot of people don't realize that Mount Rushmore, there's 3 surveyors and the other guy. Does anybody know who the other guy is?
I'd say Teddy Roosevelt.
Yeah, he was not a surveyor. So in the surveying community, it's 3 surveyors and the other guy, whoever he is. But George Washington started surveying at the age of 16. And William and Mary, out of William and Mary College, and he surveyed under the guidance of Lord Fairfax, who owned 5 million acres in northern Virginia. So I would say he got pretty good experience surveying 5 million acres.
Without GPS.
Without GPS, yes. You could read through those. Statehood of Missouri was in 1812. Louisiana Purchase was in 1803. The United States doubled its size at 909 million square miles they purchased for $15 million. I'm not exactly sure how that figures out. It's pennies per square mile. But the government they purchased this land, they had to devise a way for 2 things, for sale and what's the land worth. And as they purchased it, as they purchased property across through Illinois, the United States devised the rectangular survey system. That's what that's what the Louisiana Purchase is surveyed by, was a rectangular survey system. The idea was square miles, trying to survey square miles. In Illinois, they actually surveyed every 6 miles. And then every 6 miles is a township. This is a township, 6 miles square. When they got in Missouri, they needed more details, so they subdivided the 6 miles into sections. So inside 6 square miles, there's 36 sections, each a mile square. That's what the intent was. So you can turn to the second page. This is copies of their notes. They would go in and they would survey every square mile. At every half mile, they would mark a corner. And these are notes from there. North between sections 13 and 14, township 37 north, range 6 east of the 5th principal meridian. At 24 chains, they hit a brook. It's 10 lengths wide. It runs to the east. At 2440, they hit a black walnut tree 8 inches in diameter. At 40 chains, that's a half a mile. They set a quarter post from which a black oak 10 inches in diameter bears south 46 degrees west 12 lengths, and a 12-inch white oak bears north 61 degrees east 29 lengths. Then they continued on. And if you look at the very bottom of the page, it says, land, the south half is rolling, soil second rate, timber, white oak and hickory, undergrowth, hickory and oak. The north half rolling, rocky soil, thin, timber oak, undergrowth, oak and hickory. On the left side of the page, under north, it says CHS, It's chains. This is a chain. This is what they surveyed with. They would grab an end and take off through the woods. A true chain is 66 feet long. Why they came up with 66 feet, I don't know. But 80 chains, 80 times 66 is 5,280 feet. In Missouri, when they got up to the hills, they could not hold at the 66-foot chain level. So they cut it back to a two-pole chain, 33 feet. This is 33 feet long. This is a compass. This compass, it's got declination correction on it. That's what this is here. This needle points to magnetic north. Magnetic north is just inside Canada above Minnesota. It's not true north to the axis. So if you're standing here, true north is to the axis here, but magnetic north is this direction, just to be overemphasized. So what you're able to do with this declination is you can correct right here. It's about 2.5, 3 degrees. So you could put into the declination 3 degrees. So whenever the needle points, even though it shows it's pointing north, the compass itself is running true north to the axis. Otherwise, if you don't have the declination correction on it, you've got to keep in your mind always, when you're running north, well, you're not really running north, you've got to run 3 degrees northeast. So whenever they first started surveying after Louisiana Purchase, they just had a plain compass. They didn't have the declination correction in it. The survey crews back then, you had an instrument man. His job was to take care of the compass. You had a party chief. He had a field notebook. It's still debatable because back then you had quill pens. You had to carry a bottle of ink. Did he carry his bottle of ink with him through the woods as they tromped through the woods? They would get 6 to 8 miles a day surveying through the woods, dragging his chain. And they would only get paid for what they actually surveyed. If you start at the bottom of this township, you run north along the east line of section 36, you had to go east to close off that section, that mile. So they would go east. Then they would walk back. They didn't get paid for walking back. So if they surveyed 6 to 8 miles a day, they may walk 10 miles, 12 miles, because they would set camp up in the middle of this township. So anywhere they started, they would have to walk 2, maybe 3 miles just to get started. A lot different than today. So along with the party, you had instrument man, you had party chief, you had 2 axemen, usually 2 axemen, cut the line through the woods. And you had 2 chainmen. You had a rear chainman and a head chainman. And their job was to keep the chain up off the ground. And you can come up and take a look later on. The loops in this chain, you can see, are wearing. They would carry 2 chains with them. They would carry a chain that they had never used, and they would carry the chain that they always used. And periodically they would check the distance between the 2 tapes to make sure they were measuring 66 feet or 33 feet. I did not bring them along. I've got 2 chaining pins I found in the woods. And if you think about that, I found 2 chaining pins in the woods, so whenever the surveyors were out there surveying, they were measuring wrong. They end up with the wrong measurement. Because you start out with 11 chaining pins, 1 wherever you start. And the head chainman has 10. Every time he stretches out the chain, he drops a chaining pin. And a chaining pin, you're usually about 18 inches long, and they got a loop on top of it. Head chainman would drop it in the ground. They move up 10 chains. he'd be out of his chain, out of the chaining pins. The rear chainman would bring up the 10 because the one was still on the ground, and they would continue that process. And the party chief, he had tallies. What he had is it was a leather strap over his shoulder, and he had beads. And every time they would run out of chaining pins, he would flip a bead over his shoulder. And it was all to keep track of how many times they chained, how many times they, basically how many times they were chained. So I found a chaining pin in the woods. Actually, I've done 2. So at the end of the day, they weren't counting 10. At one point in time, they only counted 9, but thought they counted 10. Until they realized that there's a chaining pin missing. So somewhere along the line, they lost either 33 feet or 66 feet, depending on what they were using. Does that make sense? Anybody any questions? Okay.
Jerry,
Yes.
who figured out that they did it?
Oh, I don't know.
I mean, if you haven't surveyed, how do you know?
And when did they decide that? I don't know. Let's move on. St. John County was surveyed starting in the 1816s, and the most of it was done by 1818. As I read here earlier, at the quarter corner, there was a 10-inch black oak bears north or south 46 degrees west 12 links. This is a link. Loop to loop is a link. That's about 8 inches. And why they measured the trees in inches but yet still used links to measure with, I'm not sure. It seems like at some point in time they should have went with feet and inches or feet and tenths. But they would mark the tree. They would walk up to the tree and they would knock off the bark and they would scribe numbers inside that tree. Now, today, what we're after is whether we reach race original GLO surveyor, and GLO stands for General Land Office. Now it's the Bureau of Land Management. But back in the early 1800s, the government organization was GLO, General Land Office. So when we're out searching for this section line, we're looking for these trees. And I've got a tree over here I'll show you later on. It was marked, I don't remember, 1848 or 1849. And we were given a demonstration. So we actually cut the tree down. It was a living tree, healthy tree. But for demonstration purposes, we cut it down to see if we could find their marks. Well, I wouldn't have brought it. You probably realize the marks are going to be there because I wouldn't have brought it if it was going to be blank, but I'll show them later on. Let's see. After Louisiana Purchase, the government had to devise a way of surveying it. It had to come up with an initial point. That's what it's described as. The first 2 contracts was for, it went to gentleman Joseph C. Brown and Prospect K. Robbins. Those were the first 2 contracts. P.K. Robbins started at the mouth of the Arkansas River and the Mississippi River and ran due north. That line runs pretty close to Potosi. Joseph C. Brown started at the St. Francis River and ran west. Where those 2 points cross is called the initial point. The line that P.K. Robbins ran is called the 5th principal meridian. The 4th principal meridian is in Illinois. The 3rd principal meridian is over toward Ohio. Every deed in Missouri, Arkansas, Iowa, you get up into Minnesota, are all based on those 2 original lines. St. John County, well, right here, we're in Township 36 or 39 North, Range 8 East. So we are 39 townships north of that initial point. 39 times 6, that's how many miles we are north of the initial point. And we are 8 ranges east of the 5th principal meridian, or east of Potosi. So basically on a direct line, we're 8 times 6, we're 48 miles due east of Potosi. You get into on the west side of Potosi, you would have Township 39 north, range 8 west of the 5th principal meridian. Okay, anybody got any questions? Yes?
You just mentioned St. Genevieve County, and I see on your bullet points here that, and I kind of remember this from online, that there were 5 original counties.
Yes.
So how big was our county back in the day when there were only 5 counties? Did they run?
It ran all the way to Oklahoma. It was just basically strips of land. They had to divide it up somehow. And if you look in the statutes, it'll show each county, and it took several different reorganizations to actually get the county size for each county. And it'll show that Perry County came from part of Cape Girardeau County, part of St. Genevieve County. The little tip on the south end of St. Gen County, on the very tip at the bottom of St. John County, there's 2 V's, I guess you describe at the bottom. The second V came into fruition when the county did not have enough acreage. So they had to increase St. John County. So they decided to add on to St. John County in that direction. So the federal government had certain criteria that you had to follow, and St. John County was short on their acreage. How they actually knew they were short, there's a lot of survey work done just to get around St. John County, come down the river. There was a lot of work done. Let's move on to the next sheet of paper. This is a nice square township. You have that one? You don't have that? There it is. This is what the government was hoping to find. Nice square 6-mile townships. You could divide it up easily into 36 individually squared sections. You look at the top, in the upper right corner, you have section 1. Then as you run across to the left, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, you drop down 1 in a serpentine manner. You get up to 36 sections in the lower left corner. So they ran every mile of this. Every half mile they set a corner. Every half mile they marked trees. This is what they ran into if you turn the page. These are French and Spanish land grants that are skewed in here in every direction. Now, the story that I've been told is France and Spain battled over this land for quite a few years. And France owed a lot of money to soldiers. France was broke. They ended up selling us this land, for pennies. So they were broke, but they owed a lot of money to a lot of people. So instead of paying them money, they said, okay, here, we owe you X amount of dollars. Go stake your claim. Here's 7,000 orphans. Here's 4,000 orphans. There's a land grant out by Fredericktown. It's 29,000 orphans, like 26,000 acres. So go stake your claim. Well, after the Louisiana Purchase, the United States government decided that, okay, if these people had legitimate claims, we were going to have to bow to them. So as they came up and they surveyed this, they're still trying to lay out square miles. And if you look close, you can still kind of see the scheme of the square miles. But inside of that is all of these crazy different shapes, sizes of land. There was courts held. Most of them were in St. Louis, and any person having a claim could claim their piece of property. There's a book down in the Recorder of Deeds office that has those court proceedings, and it's pretty interesting to read some of them. They had to show ownership. They had to show use of the land, and they really had to show the document from the French government. I have yet to see a document. The U.S., whenever they convey property over, it's called a patent. And then whenever individuals convey property, convey a deed, warranty deed, quitclaim deed, corporation deed. I'm not sure what the French government, what that document is described as, and I've never seen one. I'm still trying to track one down. So the French, most of the land grants that was given to the French people or given by the French government, I'm going to say the majority of them was surveyed. And I ran across these at the Secretary of State's office up in Jeff City. I spent several days up there rooting around. But they're in French. I took them up to the local high school and a French teacher transcribed it. It's pretty interesting. And I did actually sit down and compare a couple of these to what the General Land Office surveyed. This is the General Land Office survey, and then this is the French survey. And this survey was done in 1798, and the GLO survey, it doesn't say here, but it would have been done in it would have been done about 20 years later. Here it is, 1837. The detail of the French survey is amazing, the amount of detail they have. In fact, there's a survey here. They have a picture of a house on it. If you look real close, there's somebody standing in the doorway. But I'm convinced that the U.S. government, the GLO surveyors, retraced what the French surveyors did back in the late 1700s, just by their measurements matching that close to what the GLO did. Any questions? This is a survey of the city of St. Jeff. Well, this is kind of the north half. This is the South Gabourey Creek, and this is the north half of Gabourey Creek.
And Jerry, one time somebody told me that the middle of every township was originally turned over for school.
Yes. There was land allocated for the schools. And that's, well, actually what it was, the land was designated for the school purposes. They could put a schoolhouse on it, or they could sell the property for school purposes. And the reorganized school is because each township had their own little schoolhouse. And whenever it was reorganized because they incorporated this township into this school district. And through the years, they all got centralized up here in the north part of town. Here is the township plat around the city of St. Jeff. The squares are long gone. There's no squares. Very few little bitty lines. There's a little line in here that's still what's described as sectionalized land. This St. Jeff was settled in the 1700s. So we've heard. There's still debate, but
Township Act. I'm trying to figure out what the conflict is between the survey land grant parcels and designation of township. It wasn't just it was an overlay for the purpose of keeping records, wasn't it?
Yes.
It didn't affect property rights in any way.
Other than the French had to, whoever had the French claim, they had to prove their claim to the U.S. government. Does that answer your question? Okay.
Why couldn't they have gone ahead and laid out the township grid without regard to who owns it or why or what their rights are?
In some areas, you can look at some of these GLO plats, and if you look close, and I'm sorry I don't have larger pictures, I could pass these around. But you can see here's a land grant, and you can see the sectionalized lines are drawn through it. And the reason was because that person didn't have a valid claim. But later on, he got his claim. He went to court, sued government, and that claim is Henry, and his last name is Peyrous. However you want to pronounce that. But if they had the claim when GLO was in their survey and they had the right claim, they would basically go around their land grant.
I understand why.
I don't know either. Other than that the government wanted to accept the claims from the previous owner. So, and then here's another area where the lines don't go through the land grant. So that person had a claim. It was a valid claim at that point in time. Now, P.K. Robbins and Joseph C. Brown was the first two contracts. Those two names are going to come up later on. Does anybody have any questions about chains or GLO plats? If you turn to the next page, you'll see more of this. This area here. This area in here is the city of St. John right now. This area in here. And if you look over to the left and to the right a little bit, you'll see all the little thin lines running out towards the Mississippi River. That's the big field. Drive down Long Highway 61, you'll see all the strips of land. That's what the big field is. Kind of right in the middle, you'll see, you might be able to pick out Francis Valley. There's an odd-shaped piece of property right here in the middle, Francis Valley. That's where Riley's football field is in Valley Springs Estates. Turn to the next page. The city of St. John was actually surveyed by GLO in the 1840s by Joseph C. Brown. And off to the left, the lower left, block 28, is the Roman Catholic congregation of St. Genevieve. It's the old cemetery. P.K. Robbins, after his surveying career, retired in St. Genevieve. And the burial records indicate that he was buried in that cemetery, which was surveyed by Joseph C. Brown. Kind of ironic. But P.K. Robbins, down next to the post office, is the Jesse Robbins house. That's P.K.'s son. He was Jesse was county clerk. No, he was a circuit clerk. He was an attorney. He was a representative. Trying to think of PK's other son. They lived around here. He was a local coroner. I tried to track down the Robbins family. There's some Robbins that live out in Fort Frederick County. Either they know they're not related or they don't know they're related. But I thought it was kind of interesting. But move on up to some more equipment. Anybody got any questions?
Chuck, I've just got a general comment because I've been working multiple times with this, just so people understand. The true section is a mile by mile, 640 acres. If you buy a quarter section, it should be 160 acres. If you buy a quarter section, it should be 40 acres. If you buy land as a quarter section, don't ever bank on having a true 40 acres.
No. You got to remember
There
there.
are areas in the county where we've had 40 acres. I've been to court where we've had 37, 38 acres. So if you buy land by section, quarter section, quarter section, don't think that you're going to end up with a true division of 640 acres.
Right. There are sections in St. John County that are long, and there are sections in St. John County that are short. And if they're short, everybody gets their adequate part. Everybody gets their share. If it's long, everybody gets their share. You got to remember, they're dragging this through the woods. They're getting paid pennies a mile. You know, did they do good work? Absolutely. I would not want to go back. We've been on retracement surveys where we got the compass and the chain out and we dragged it through the woods. And if we got a mile and a half that day, we were lucky. And here they're doing 6 or 7 or 8 miles a day. And they don't have to walk back to camp. We got the truck and drove back. So if the only thing they could actually truly do if they were measuring with a chain is they would have to be short. Because if the chain is not level, you're measuring a short distance. So if you measure a section that was actually long, what they were probably doing is they were dragging the chain, they wouldn't stop, they'd drop the pin and keep walking. So, did they drop the pin did they stop and hold the chain tight and drop it exactly where it's supposed to be? Probably not. The other thing is, some of these hills in St. John County are pretty steep. There's a note on one of the GLO field notes for, this is a mile north of St. John, just west of Tar Rock, that says, not fit for man nor beast. You know, so they had a little bit of sense of humor, but they were also looking for the soil, they were looking for water rights, they were looking for salt. Salt was a big thing back then. Lewis and Clark, when they went on their expedition, they stopped down at the salt works down below, just north of St. Mary, and picked up their salt for the expedition, and it's in their notes. So, you know, salt back then was a big thing. This survey here with the house and the lady, or I'm assuming it's a lady standing there, it's got smoke coming out of the stack and everything. This is the survey of that piece of property down there. And it shows on it salt works. And this was the French survey. You're running out of time. More modern equipment. After the compass and chain came theodolites. They still either drug a chain through the woods or they actually went to steel tape. After the theodolites, you got into total stations. Theodolites, you could take an EDM, electronic distance meter, and you could set it on top of this. I've got a little prism over here. You can shoot a distance too without having to measure the chain. This is a little prism. And actually look real close, your image is upside down. I'm not exactly sure how it does that. You're upside down to look at it. That machine and that EDM will shoot about a mile. You can see it. With bigger prisms, this thing you get about a mile and a half and get you within half inch, and a mile and a half inch or an inch. You know, I don't want to necessarily say who really cares, but then you get into robotics. That is a robotic instrument. As long as I point this prism toward it, it'll keep track of it. And as technology, and what does technology do? It eliminated one person from the field crew.
to Axman, Jared?
Nope.
No, okay. See, I was paying attention.
Everything, you used to have to write everything down in the field book. All the angles, all the distances you took, everything. It lost it. Then we went to data collectors. You hook your data collector up to the machine, and it would download all that information into this. Take this back to the office, plug it into the computer, and then 30 seconds have all your angles and distances compared to sitting down for an hour or so hand entering everything. All right? Now we moved up to GPS. Global Positioning Satellite System. This tracks military satellites. Collects the data in here. Download the information, plug it into a post processor. If you have two of these instruments set up, it'll measure the distance between the two. If you set this up over a section corner and you set the next one up over a quarter corner, let it sit there and cook and collect data. It'll give you an accurate distance between those 2 points. The accuracy, as they say, is a foot in 100,000 feet. Now, GPS is great, but it's not like anything else. If you take off the wrong corner, I don't care how well you measure, your survey's going to be wrong. You could still go out and measure with this and the chain. You could still go out and measure, well, we still do with this, but you could go out and measure with this. And it's all about the care that you take. With GPS, we use more GPS now. I used to have 3 crews. It's down to me and one other guy. He takes the GPS out in the woods, and he does. I can't keep up with paperwork with the amount of work he does with GPS and a 4-wheeler. You know, eliminated umpteen jobs, but I don't know what else you do. You have to keep up with technology. One other thing. When we find a GLO corner, this is, we're in a program with the Department of Natural Resources, the Land Survey Program. We'll go out and we'll replace, if we find a stone, we'll replace the stone with this monument. It's 36 inches long. It's got a magnet on top. It's got a magnet on the bottom. This boot will slide off. If a landowner or somebody, or even a dozer comes along and takes the top of this off, this boot will come off and we'll still know where the original position is. And the idea behind it is to preserve the evidence. Some of these corners nobody's been to that I can recall of since the early 1800s. There are still trees out there still living that were marked in 1818. They're huge white oaks, but they're still there. You don't find very many. What we're looking for is whenever the tree dies, the stump will rot away and the tap roots will rot away. And what you'll actually find is a depression in the ground. A pine tree has a tap root. You could actually, I've gone to pine trees before and it's just as flat, you couldn't tell there was a tree there. But you could take your machete, and if you find a spot, you could drive your machete down in the ground. And it's all based on these notes. If we go out and find a stone or a stone pile, we have these notes with us, and we check the bearing and distance written down in these notes to see if we find a tree or the evidence of the tree. But we'll go out and we'll set this. Usually we bury it in the ground at least 2 foot, stick out of the ground 6 inches, 8 inches. We mark witness trees again, just like they did. Document, just like they did. There's a document with those notes registered with the Land Survey Program. And I know I'm out of time. I got a tree over here that was marked, I don't remember if it was 1848 or 1849. We cut into it, we broke it open, and you can see the marks that they put in there back then. And as the tree heals over, you can actually see the reverse image on the outside part of that tree. So, that's it. I know it's late, but there's Anybody wants to look at these plats real quick, you're more than welcome to. If you got any questions, if you want to come up and see the tree, let me know.
Sure, thanks.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Okay, so there's looks like a lot of information. If you guys want to take a few minutes and look around, or if you have to go back to work, obviously that's good too. Just a reminder, we will not be meeting the first Thursday of April because it is our annual banquet. So the first Thursday meeting is supplemented with the annual banquet. So we'll see you on the 19th. Anybody have any questions? Well, there you go. Meeting's adjourned.
What we're looking at, Jerry?